Well, I'm Temple Grandin. I'm a professor at Colorado State University, and you watch the movie, you're going to see how I was much more autistic back in the 60s, and I was just amazed at how Claire Danes became me 35 years ago. I really love the way the movie shows my visual thinking. And one of the things it's going to show is that people on the autism spectrum really can achieve a lot of things.
This is in some ways a tall task because I'm pretty choked up. I don't know how this film hit you. What an amazing experience this has been. What a wonderful film. You know, I looked at my cable bill recently and decided that I need to get rid of some premium channels. Just about all of them except HBO, and that's one of the reasons why. What wonderful work HBO does. We are also here, of course, because of the Hope Institute and the autism program, and they are partnering in this magnificent event, and we are going to have a panel discussion now, and let's start from this end and work our way down. Dr. Mary Ellen Caron is the head of the City of Chicago's Department of Family and Support Services. Dr. Joseph Nair is the president and CEO of the Hope Institute for Children and Families. Quinn Kahneman is a high school student near Monticello, near Champaign, and he has autism spectrum disorder. He's also an author. And last but not least, Dr. Temple Grandin. Dr. Grandin, I have to ask you first, when you watch that, what do you think?
Well, it was just like a strange time machine watching Claire Danes turn into me back in the 60s and the 70s. And I also just love the way that Mick Jackson did the, how it showed how I think visually. I mean, she became me. I mean, I just couldn't believe it.
Did they get it right?
Yes, they did. Well, I hope I'm not quite so autistic acting as now. You see, the thing is, a person on the spectrum always can keep learning. You know, the scene in there when Mother was always pushing me to do things. You got to push a little bit or you don't get any progress.
Quinn, you're how old?
I'm 15.
And you've seen the movie twice now?
Yes. Earlier
There you go.
earlier around when I came in for an early viewing, so I'd be more prepared for this. And
Tell me how this movie hits you.
well, first of all, they portrayed autism perfectly. I mean, I've seen a couple of the movies where they try to, and they don't capture it anywhere near as well as this one. It comes to the thought processing, the tics. I don't know if you ran your fingers through your hair in real life, but when Claire Danes did,
yes, I did.
I end up doing that all the time. I'll probably end up doing it while I'm up here. Just everything is portrayed so well. I was really surprised and made me wonder if Claire Danes actually didn't have a little bit of Aspie in her.
How about that, huh? Dr. Nair, tell me your reaction to the film.
Well, I got to see it earlier today with Quinn and had a conversation with Quinn just following that viewing, and then saw it tonight. I'm so impressed and grateful, and I think a lot of people will be as this hits the airways, that Dr. Grandin had partnered with HBO to share herself so intimately with the rest of the world. And I'm pleased and saddened at the same time. One is I'm saddened from an ego perspective because no lecture that I could give, or any university professor, any book anybody writes, will ever be able to capture what Dr. Grandin and HBO captured for us tonight and for the rest of our lives. And I'm excited because I think it's a valuable, very valuable addition to our knowledge base in the field. We got to see autism spectrum disorders through Temple Grandin's eyes as portrayed by HBO, and we're quite grateful.
Dr. Caron, your reaction.
I'd just like to thank you for having me, and I feel so privileged to be with this panel. What I thought about is how we really need to think about the differences in everybody, and that the way this movie teaches us that there's so much to give, and there's so many things that you can learn from people who you may not think like you to begin with, but that you need to really dig deeper and find out who everyone is so that they can affect your life, or in this case, in Temple's case, she certainly has changed the way and is an inventor.
Dr. Grandin, the movie ends in 1981, so 29 years later, how do you think the world views autism and people with autism?
Well, I think a whole lot better. I mean, back when my mother was doing things, there were no support groups. I mean, people didn't understand autism today. I mean, there's many more services today. I want to emphasize the one thing that really helped me, I think, was my 50s upbringing. When life was more structured, I was expected to have table manners. You know, I get kind of worried about, especially some of the smart kids like you. You probably got good manners, but I'm seeing, you know, too much just really bad behavior. And, you know, I was angry when the can of deodorant was slammed down, but you know what? I thank them now for that. Because I think it's fine to be eccentric, and I still dress eccentric, but you can't be a rude, dirty slob that, you know, damages other people's property. You know, I knew where the boundaries were. I knew just which house in the neighborhood I could be really bad. You know, wet toilet paper fights in the living room? Not in our house. You know, Mother kind of knew just how hard to push. Because if you don't push some, you're not going to get anywhere. Now, you've got to be careful about sensory overload. When you get tired, things get harder. But, you know, there's got to be some expectations for behavior.
I was a member of Mayor Daley's cabinet for 5 years in the 90s as his press secretary. I think I know some of the answers, but why don't you tell us what the city of Chicago is doing?
Yes, right now we have 2 autism programs of Illinois, which is called TAP, and this is the nation's largest statewide autism resource network. So parents and anyone who wants to can go in and learn about autism. They can also make things that help children or adults at home. We also have family and community resource centers, and it was really interesting. That's at our Head Start locations, and we're really trying in the city of Chicago to figure out how to help earlier in the Head Start in particular, and to teach teachers how to help kids who need something different than what we think in our heads. And then the Hope Institute, which Dr. Naya represents, has just opened a charter school this summer, and they right now are in the early grades, but the plan is to go all the way through high school. And it's a school that has some children with learning disabilities and on the autism spectrum, but it also has the general population. So my belief is that anybody who gets together and meets others not like themselves will certainly be ambassadors for the future. So I think this school, which is going, and they're hoping to open many more, and then Easter Seals also has a specialized day school for students on the autism spectrum. And the mayor has taken this on as one of his issues, Jim. He is very concerned about making sure places like the airport aren't more difficult for those who are on the spectrum, and also the libraries and the Children's Museum. And so we're really looking into ways of how to make the place more user-friendly.
All right. Thank you very much, and thank all of you. 3 PhDs and a teenage author. What a wonderful evening. Dr. Carey, Dr.